Valhalla does not begin as an ordinary palace, but as the great hall of the fallen in Asgard, the world of the gods. In the Old Norse tradition, its name means the Hall of the Slain, a place reached through the choice of fate and battle. The chief lord of Valhalla is Odin, the supreme god of wisdom, war, runes, and hidden knowledge. It is Odin who gathers the finest fallen warriors in his hall to prepare them for the final storm. The story of Valhalla comes down to us from old songs, sagas, Eddic verses, and later retellings. Its main written sources are the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda, recorded in Iceland. But the ideas behind Valhalla appeared long before they were written down in the oral memory of the northern peoples. For the Scandinavians, this place was not simply an afterlife, but a reward, an honor, and an eternal duty. It was believed that not every dead person would go there, but only one who had fallen bravely and worthily. A warrior is not led to Valhalla by chance, because the choice is made by the Valkyries, the servants of Odin. The Valkyries ride above the battlefield, deciding which of the fallen they will take under the protection of the heavenly road. Their image combines the harshness of war, the beauty of the north, the fate of heroes, and the will of Odin, the All-Father himself. According to the myths, half of the worthy slain went to Odin, while the other half went to Freya. So, beside Valhalla, in the legend stands the field of Folkvanger, where heroic dead are also received. This shows that the northern afterlife was more complex than a simple story about a single hall. Valhalla is located in Asgard, the world of the Aesir, which is linked to the other worlds by the great tree Yggdrasil. Above all worlds in the myths stretches fate, and through them runs the shining bridge Bifrost. Across this rainbow bridge move gods, messengers, and powers that bind the heavenly and earthly realms together. The hall of Valhalla itself was described as vast and radiant, filled with shields, spears, benches, and light. Its roof, in some descriptions, was made of shields, and its beams were held up by spears. Such a design emphasized that even in eternity, warriors remain among weapons and honor. According to myth, Valhalla had many doorways so that its army could rush out in a single moment. It is often said that there were 540 doors, and through each of them hundreds of warriors would pour at once. This detail is directly connected to the future Ragnarok, when the forces gathered by Odin will leave their home. There dwell the Einherjar, the fallen warriors chosen for a special destiny and a great battle. They do not lie at rest, and do not dissolve into silence, as in other visions of death. Every morning the Einherjar take up their weapons, form ranks, and once more clash in a deadly training battle. They fight all day, sharpening endurance, strength, fury, discipline, and loyalty to one another. But by evening all wounds disappear, the fallen rise again, and hostility turns into festive peace. After the battle, the warriors return to Odin's hall, where feasts, laughter, and long conversations await them. At these feasts, they are served the meat of the boar, Sarimnir, which is cooked anew every day for all. Each evening, the warriors consume the wondrous beast, and by the next morning it is whole again. Thus, the myth emphasizes the endless abundance prepared for those whom the Lord of Valhalla has chosen. The drink at the feast is not ordinary wine, but mead flowing from the udder of the magical goat, Hydrun. This goat stands upon the roof of the hall and feeds on the leaves of the world tree, giving mead without end. Beside her, the myths also mention the stag Eikthyr, whose antlers are linked with the waters of the worlds. Such details make Valhalla not merely a house of warriors, but part of the cosmic order of the gods. At the center of that order stands Odin, because Valhalla exists first of all for the sake of his design. Odin knows that one day Ragnarok will come, the doom of gods and worlds, and so he gathers an army. He cannot completely cancel fate, but he can meet it prepared and unbroken. That is why Valhalla is not an idle reward, but a camp awaiting the great inevitable hour. Odin is always the chief there, though around him stand many gods, beings, heralds, and fallen heroes. Odin sits on high, listens to the reports of the ravens Hugin and Munin, and reflects on what is to come. His wolves Geri and Freki are also tied to the hall, underscoring the wildness and power of that place. Thus the image of Valhalla combines royal order, beastly force, triumph, and constant threat. Those who come here are not elders of peaceful death, but those whose lives ended in the strain of battle. Yet not only death in battle matters, but also the idea of valor, glory, and honor. The northern world placed great value on a person's name after death, on memory among kin and companions. To enter Valhalla meant not to vanish, but to become part of a great song that would be remembered. This place bound warrior honor to a cosmic mission in which personal glory serves a greater cause. For the living, the thought of Valhalla softened the fear of death, but did not make death easy. It demanded courage, endurance, faithfulness to one's oath, and readiness to accept fate without fleeing. In this sense, Valhalla was not merely a promise after death, but a rule for earthly life. A warrior had to live in such a way as to be worthy of a Valkyrie's gaze above the battlefield. That is why the legends of Valhalla influenced conduct, customs, and the ideal of the hero in the northern lands. Although modern people often see romance in it, the original image was stern and demanding. There is no peace there in the usual sense, because even after death one must prepare for war. The Einherjar train every day not for amusement, but for the final battle against the forces of chaos. These forces are tied to Ragnarok, when giants, monsters, and fate itself will crash down upon the gods. Then the warriors of Valhalla will come forth ready to fight shoulder to shoulder with Odin. The myth does not promise them victory forever, because the northern tradition knows the price of inevitable doom. But that is precisely where its strength lies, for honor is measured not by the outcome, but by the choice. To fight even while understanding the nearness of the end meant true greatness to the Scandinavian imagination. That is why Valhalla became a symbol not of immortal comfort, but of the courageous acceptance of a hard fate. Among those linked with its image, people often remember legendary kings, jarls, and heroes. Although myths rarely list all its inhabitants in detail, the very idea of the hall is filled with great names, the most celebrated fighters whose deeds outlived their earthly lives could imaginatively be placed there. Thus Valhalla also served as the heavenly memory of a people where heroes do not dissolve into nothingness. It is sometimes compared with other afterworlds, but in spirit it is unlike them. It is not a kingdom of shadows and not a place of punishment, but a warrior hall of light, noise, and steel. Joy reigns in it at the feast, yet beneath that joy there is always the sound of the approaching catastrophe. Even Odin's generosity cannot be separated from the fact that he gathers his chosen for his own war. Therefore, the image of the All-Father here is double. He is both a generous host and a far-seeing ruler. He rewards warriors, but he also uses their strength because he knows the cost of the coming hour. This duality makes the stories of Valhalla especially vivid and philosophically deep even now. It does not merely console, but forces one to think about duty, the price of glory, and the meaning of courage. The very origin of the idea was likely connected with the cult of warrior bands and the veneration of fallen ancestors. When society lived by war, sea voyages, and raids, such a posthumous ideal was understandable. It elevated death in battle and turned it from a tragedy into a passage to a higher destiny. But that does not mean people desired death thoughtlessly, for in the sagas, life is valued very highly. Rather, death in battle was seen as the limit of human fate, where true character is revealed. That is why Valhalla became inseparable from the ideas of glory, memory, courage, and fearless choice. In later culture, its image changed, becoming more romantic, darker, or more heroic according to the taste of each age. Yet at its core, there always remained the northern idea that honor is stronger than fear of the end. When people say that Valhalla appeared, they do not mean a date of construction, but the birth of a myth. That myth took shape over centuries among the Germanic and Scandinavian tribes long before the Christianization of the North. Later, the oral traditions were written down in the Christian era, yet they preserved a pagan core. That is why we know Valhalla through late texts that reflect much older beliefs. Because of this, scholars argue over how exactly it was imagined in different centuries and regions of the North. Some consider the image unified, while others see in it many local traditions and meanings. But for a story, the shared core matters more, and that core is remarkably stable and recognizable across the ages. Valhalla is Odin's hall in Asgard, where the Valkyries bring the best fallen warriors of the world. There they feast, fight, recover, and wait for the day when the fate of Ragnarok will break open. Alongside this, there is also a quieter side of the myth, where songs, horns, and toasts can be heard. The warriors there are not alone, because they share a brotherhood won by a common readiness to die with dignity. Thus, the afterlife in Valhalla remains a continuation of the war band, only transferred into the world of the gods. The Valkyries hold a special place because without them no hero would enter the hall. They are not merely guides of souls, but executors of the highest will, choosing the worthy among the fallen. Their name is often interpreted as choosers of the slain, which directly links them with the fate of war. In songs they can be fearsome, beautiful, wise, and almost elusive beings. Sometimes they serve horns of mead in Valhalla, emphasizing the bond between battle and the feast that follows. Thus, the feminine image in the myth unites death, choice, honor, service, and solemn beauty. Another important question concerns whether Valhalla disappeared or whether it exists forever within myth. From the point of view of the legends themselves, its fate is tightly bound to the ending of the world in Ragnarok. When the final battle comes, Valhalla will cease to be merely a hall of waiting and will release its army. After that, the old cosmic order will be destroyed, and with it, the fate of the hall will also change. That is, it does not vanish earlier, but at the moment of the worldwide collapse of the old age of the gods. In this sense, Valhalla did not sink like Atlantis and did not vanish suddenly in a single night. Its end is built into the great cycle of the world, where even the gods do not possess full power over fate. Until Ragnarok, however, it exists in mythic time as a place of eternal preparation. There are no ordinary years or calendars there, because time in the afterlife flows differently than on earth. Days repeat in training and feasting, forming a circle directed toward one great moment. This cyclic nature gives Valhalla a strange blend of peace, expectation, and growing tension. It feels as though the feast is endless, yet every sound of the horn reminds one of the coming final departure. That is why stories of Valhalla are always colored not only by glory, but also by a quiet unease. Even its greatness shines against the knowledge that one day everything will meet its trial and its limit. If we speak of where exactly it is located, the answer lies within the northern model of the cosmos. Valhalla is situated in Asgard, the world of the Aesir, which stands apart among the other worlds of Yggdrasil. It does not lie on an earthly map, and to search for it as a city in the sea would be a mistake. This place is mythological, yet for those who believed in it, it possessed a complete spiritual reality. Such a world is no less important for culture than geography because it governs the imagination of a people. Valhalla explained not the space of journeys, but the space of destiny after a worthy death in battle. That is also the source of its power in memory. It answers not the question of where to live, but why to live. This is tied to why the image of Valhalla outlived the very age of Scandinavian paganism. After the Christianization of the North, the old beliefs weakened, but the images of the gods did not vanish from memory at once. They passed into literature, songs, heroic tales, and later romantic art. So Valhalla became part of the world's cultural imagination far beyond ancient Scandinavia. Today, its name is recognized even by those who have never fully read the Eddic texts. But popular culture often simplifies the image, turning it into merely a paradise for warriors. In truth, the myth is deeper because it contains much fate, discipline, and awareness of the end. There is joy there, but it stands beside iron necessity and the memory of the blood of battles. There is a feast there, but it always comes before a new morning when shields and spears ring again. There is honor there, but that honor demands an eternal readiness to go forth and meet destruction without complaint. Therefore, a full story of Valhalla cannot be reduced to a beautiful hall with endless mead. It is part of a great northern picture of the world where a human being is not the master of fate, but is responsible for how he faces it. Valhalla shows that death does not remove duty if a person was born for heroic deeds. It turns the end of life into a continuation of duty raised to the cosmic scale of the gods. Sometimes researchers argue over how widespread the myth of Valhalla was among ordinary people. Perhaps ideas of the afterlife varied by region, social class, and historical period. But the very fact that the image was preserved in the main texts speaks of its enormous symbolic power. It expressed the dream of the warrior elite, and at the same time, a broader ideal of steadfastness in the face of destruction. That is why Valhalla became so firmly bound to the image of the northern hero in our imagination. This hero knows that the world is fragile, yet still raises his sword and does not retreat. He understands the price of fate, yet prefers glorious faithfulness to long and dishonorable survival. And if he falls, the Valkyries may bend over him, opening the road to Odin's hall. There, beneath the high roof of shields, he will be greeted by the noise of the feast and the brotherhood of the fallen. There he will learn that death was not the last page, but the entrance into a new duty. Morning will come again, weapons will ring again, and the great training battle will begin again. By evening he will rise unharmed, sit at the table, and listen to the ancient speeches of the gods. So passes the eternity of Valhalla, where joy is never separated from purpose. Odin watches over all this not as a simple ruler, but as the master of fate and risk. He knows more than others, yet that knowledge does not make the world safe or peaceful. On the contrary, Odin's wisdom is tragic, because the more he knows, the more clearly he sees the end. That is why Valhalla is not only a reward for warriors, but also Odin's answer to his own fear. By gathering the best of the fallen, he seems to argue with fate, even while understanding the power of what is foreordained. In this lies one of the strongest features of northern mythology, stern and deeply human at the same time. The gods here are great, but not all-powerful, and heroes are mortal, yet able to share in the fate of the gods. Valhalla becomes a place where a mortal human being almost rises to the level of cosmic history. He is no longer merely the son of his clan, but a participant in the final battle that will shape the face of the world. That is why the image of Valhalla has stirred people so long, even those far removed from the ancient North. It speaks to the desire that life and death should have meaning, and that courage should not be wasted. It promises that dignity can outlive the body and become part of something immeasurably greater. But at the same time it reminds us that greatness is never given freely and is always bound up with sacrifice. This double truth makes Valhalla a legend that cannot be forgotten after the first encounter. It endured in sagas, scholarly debates, books, films, and the human longing for meaning. And as long as people ask how to live in the face of the inevitable end, it will be remembered. That is why Valhalla is not only Odin's ancient hall, but also an eternal image of courageous memory. It is the image of a place where fallen warriors become greater than their own death and closer to the fate of the world. It is the image of a hall where hearth light is mingled with steel, mead, song, and the echo of the final storm. And if one tells of it very briefly, then Valhalla is honor, waiting, and eternal battle. But if one tells it fully, then it is an entire world where glory, fear, and duty are woven into one. It is the story of how the northern peoples imagined the highest price of courage and the memory of the hero. It is the story of how Odin gathered the fallen so he would not meet Ragnarok alone. It is the story of Valkyries choosing the worthy among the smoke of battle and the cries of clashing steel. It is the story of an eternal feast, behind which tomorrow's call to arms and formation can already be heard. It is the story of a hall in Asgard that shines with glory and the shadow of future destruction. It is the story of warriors who die and rise again each day for the final truth of the world. And so Valhalla remains one of the most powerful legends created by the human imagination. A legend that even before the end, one can still stand upright, remember one's name, and refuse to fear.